Welcome everyone to the Data and Innovation panel. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to get a coffee and be ready for this exciting session. We're so pleased to be here with you. I'm Craig Estabrooks, Director of Corporate Services and Finance at Port St. John, and I'll be your moderator for this discussion. Innovation for ports is critical as we must stay competitive in the greater supply chain, where organizations are making data-driven decisions on a daily basis that will have long-term implications for our future growth opportunities. Innovation for ports is truly a stakeholder engagement exercise, as there are multiple partners in both the public and private sectors that must align on a given initiative. Supply chain visualization is critical in today's economy, and capturing data at a terminal is essential for all partners, including cargo owners, rail and truck operators, and shipping lines, to name a few. Our port is working closely with both RDP World and Transport Canada on a number of projects that span from startup-driven improvements around manifest data to larger-scale infrastructure products that will help improve terminal efficiency. As a port community in St. John, we are modernizing with technology without getting lost in jargon that simply gives the appearance of innovation. We are continually looking to problem solve and increase productivity by deploying a series of smart, practical solutions that together will create a truly innovative environment. I am so excited to be moderating this panel. We have two phenomenal guests with us today. First, I'm proud to introduce Alex Kehoe from RDP World, located right here in St. John, New Brunswick. Alex has worked with RDP World, previously P&O Port, since 2003, and has a background in terminal planning and operations. Throughout her career, she has gained experience implementing RDP World in-house terminal operating systems in global locations and has a strong desire to drive efficiencies and safety harnessing advances in technology and innovation. Holding positions such as planning consultant, planning manager, senior business analyst, and process improvement manager, Alex has gained experience in many aspects of terminal planning and operations in locations all around the world, including Southampton, Mozambique, and Hong Kong. Welcome, Alex, to our panel. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Mark Robbins, joining us live from Ottawa, Ontario. Mark is at Transport Canada's Innovation Centre, the intermodal R&D branch for the department. Mark describes his work as focusing on technologies that haven't quite been invented yet, including UAVs, AI, and robotics. Whether it be engaging directly with the research community, working alongside startups and scale-ups, or hacking bureaucracy by enhancing the processes associated with government operations, Mark seeks to support the accelerating modernization of the federal public service. Prior to joining Transport Canada, Mark has held positions at IBM, the Institute on Governance, the Conference Board of Canada, and the University of Toronto. And I am so pleased to have Alex and Mark join us today. These folks are immersed in innovation and technology. They are not reading from a sheet prepared by a greater team. They are living and breathing this every day. They're two of the most essential partners that we have at the Port of St. John, and it has been an absolute pleasure over the last number of years getting to know both Alex and Mark. So let's jump right into the panel. Much like the last one, please keep this interactive. Add your questions to the group chat, and I will attempt to get through all of them with the time we have. So first, let's start with Mark.
Thanks, Craig, et merci pour nous avoir invités. On est très content d'être ici et présenter pour vous aussi. We're very happy to be presenting a bit about the Transport Canada Innovation Centre today and the type of work that we're doing together with the Port of St. John. So what I'll do today is I'll talk about the Innovation Centre, who we are, how we work. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the programs that we operate, our collaborations with the Port of St. John, and then we'll try to give you a bit of a broader sampling of the types of things that we're up to, leaving plenty of time for questions. Next slide, please. The TC Innovation Centre is a team of roughly 100 people. It comprises a roughly equal proportion of engineers and policy folks, as well as sort of administrative staff, and is fundamentally the vehicle through which R&D is exercised principally at Transport Canada. If you've worked in the transportation sector before, you know that silos across modes are a very common thing. Rail people focus on rail issues and maybe don't necessarily interact with aviation people and so on and so forth. So the Innovation Centre is novel in its design in the sense that we are de-siloed. We work across all modes. Some of us have predilections and specialities, but fundamentally we'll touch everything. We also operate at a tangible level the lab and scientific facilities for the department. We oversee grant and contribution programs, we do compliance testing, we do procurement of early stage innovations. In addition to the actual substance of the work which we conduct in the transportation sector, we also do focus on spending time to modernize our own operations as well. So we have a Tiger team that focuses not just on the what of public administration, but also on the how. We lovingly call that team EPIC, and it stands for Enhancing Processes in the Innovation Center. And as Craig alluded, we use agile methodology to essentially dig up old ways of doing things within our own business unit and try to improve upon them. Final thing to note is that we support innovation sort of at all TRL levels, so TRL 1 through 9. TRL 1 being sort of your basic early stage research, TRL 9 being just pre-commercial. My work tends to focus a bit more on the higher TRL levels, but so that's what I'll be talking about today. But we do a bit of all of it. Next slide, please. What I want to focus on today in particular is the Innovative Solutions Canada program, which has sort of laid the groundwork for the collaboration with the Port of St. John. This is actually an ISED program, ISED being essentially the Ministry of Industry in Canada, and it exists in order to support R&D intensive Canadian startups and scale-ups as they develop and mature any sort of technology that they have under the works to the point of reaching commercial sustainability. So in Canada, there is an interest in, of course, supporting the R&D intensiveness of our commercial sector. And the sort of theory and literature suggests that, as you can see in the chart on the right, that there tends to be good amount of funding available for basic research. And then presumably as well, at the other end of this, when you have a product which is developed and ripe and mature, you can start to pick up commercial resources as you essentially sell a finished product. But the period in between proves a real challenge. In innovation policy, we often call that the innovation valley of death, in the sense that you have some funding which has dropped off, which you were accustomed to in earlier stages of development, but you're not quite at the level of readiness to be commercial. The Innovative Solutions Canada program fills that gap by essentially providing a curated list of promising Canadian startups and supporting the procurement of those innovations through funding. What we do is we use this program for the transportation sector. Most SMEs will actually fail in the Innovation Valley of Death, just over 50%. And so this targeted program is to help those companies, but also to help us as a department start to connect more directly with these new and exciting firms. So in addition to actually being a first purchaser, we sort of nurture broader partnerships with these startups. We want to share the expertise that the Innovation Center has, as well as draw from the expertise that they have. We also help inform them about the regulatory environment that they need to comply with and demystify some of those elements of their world. And we also like to, when we can, support deployments with other partners and stakeholders that we have in the transportation system, as we have done with the Port of St. John. Next slide, please. So our work with the Port of St. John is principally centered around a company called Bluenode. By way of background, ports and logistic companies have a lot of data coming in and have a lot of data which they need to have come out. The data tends to be unstructured and unstandardized because of the multiplicity of carriers, the multiplicity of goods being shipped. They often come in incompatible formats. And for the most part, this has been rectified in a fairly manual, very high-touch way. Bluenode essentially has found their niche to be in addressing that incompatibility through data science, essentially artificial intelligence. So what they seek to do is ingest all the data as it comes in, rectify it more or less automatically, and have it come back out in a clean format. They would also sometimes describe their work as simple data cleaning. Now, through the ISC program, the Innovation Center has essentially sponsored the deployment of Blue Note simultaneously at the Port of St. John and at the Halifax Port Authority. There's a couple good reasons for this, namely that it provides some measure of comparability between the two ports. It's an A/B trial. It's methodologically sound in the sense that if we discover something interesting at one port, we can use that to inform the deployment at the other port, and vice versa, leading to sort of a better result for both. Again, in this case, we're essentially using AI to reconcile, integrate, and analyze all the disparate data forms automatically, specifically for port manifests at first, but we'll see where this takes us. It results in a lot of improvement in efficiency in operations, accuracy in reporting, which of course we at TC are interested in intrinsically as well. But frankly, also it helps with the resilience and sustainability of the operational model. It takes something which is tends to be slow, onerous, and cost intensive, and fixes it. So we don't have the full results of this yet. We're sort of in the about the halfway point of this project, but I can tell you that we're extremely happy with the results so far. We're extremely happy with the collaboration with Port of St. John, which has been excellent. I think, and I hope that Craig is also happy too. But all that to say, it's been a really great experience so far. Next slide, please. I'm just going to finish off by giving you a sense of a couple other projects that we have in this vein, just to give you a sense of the breadth and diversity of what we're up to in this space. So we have one project underway, which is to equip our own inspectorate with drones, RPAS UAVs, which can do optical and ultrasonic integrity testing of facilities. So again, if you think sort of the intermodal nature of the work that we do, a train inspector might feel that their job centers around trains, and what do I need a drone for? That's aviation, right? We sort of are able to bridge that gap a little bit and say, look, this is a tool. The intermodal nature of the work that we do allows us to make those connections a little bit easier. We're working for deployment on building essentially immersive training environments for Transport Canada itself. So if you think about pre-pandemic, you need to have people do training. Well, you fly a bunch of people to Ottawa, you put them in the same room, you help them sort of understand what the nature of the problem is that they need to be upskilled on, and then you fly everybody home. What we're trying here is to essentially ship out immersive technology to them. They can all operate in the same environment from coast to coast to coast, the same digital environment at the same time. And we can also use this to sort of change the environments where they're working. So case in point, you might have people from across the country in a training environment. You teach them sort of the ins and outs of an airport inspection. And then on day 2 in the morning, you do a real world deployment or experiment, let's say, where you have them all demonstrating what they've learned in Ottawa International Airport. And then in the afternoon, they do it in Winnipeg International Airport, because you've essentially rendered the environment for immersive tech, and you can just swap between it easily. I see I'm getting kind of close to time, so I'll just run through the last 2 quickly. We are working with a number of UAV companies to essentially see if we can't get unmanned aircraft to move cargo to remote communities. We've partnered up with an Indigenous level of government called IFNA to run some trials in that space. And then more broadly, we seek to deploy robotics sort of in all the cases where they're relevant. This is really in every part of the transportation system. And again, it's taking sort of these early stage robotics and helping to find a good use for them, and helping to make it a little bit more viable for our stakeholders in the transportation system. So thanks for your kind attention. Merci pour votre attention. Je vais passer la parole à Alex Kehoe. I'm going to pass the mic now to Alex Kehoe from RDP World.
Mark, thank you very much. That was a very smooth and polished presentation, and apologies to everybody. I'm not bilingual in French, so I can't greet you in French. Also, Craig, thank you for the kind words of introduction. I'm very honored to be participating in this panel discussion. Somewhat terrified, I have to admit. I'm generally much more comfortable the other side of the camera. The first thing I want to do, as we've got such a wide variety of people attending today, is I want to quickly run through who are RDP World and what we do here in St. John. Many of you will be familiar with us, but some of you might have heard the name and not really understand what happens here. So primarily, we're located on the lower west side here in St. John on a site that's 70 acres in size. We have currently 435 meters of berth length for vessel operations and a draft of 12.2 meters. Our current container capacity is publicized as 200,000 TEU, and we're operating at the moment at around 120,000 per year. Supporting our container operations and other operations that happen here, we have around 3,000 feet of intermodal rail capacity on dock, 363 reefer plugs for the handling of refrigerated cargo. We've recently increased this capacity directly in line with the demand and the growth in this sector of the business. And also the implementation of the new reefer plugs is designed to consider safety, to make it a better environment for our staff who are responsible for going out and doing the monitoring of the temperatures and making sure that the units are operating without issues. Our prime movers for the containers, we have a large fleet of reach stackers, top handlers, trucks and trailers that we are using to move the containers around the yard. And the vessel operation is undertaken by our 2 post-Panamax container gantry cranes. Next slide, please. And there's a lovely picture of one of our mainline customers alongside working at night. Just to highlight that, you know, we are operating in accordance with demand and we will work during the evenings as required. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so it appears we may have some issues here with the slide deck. I did ask for some last minute changes. So apologies to the controller of the slides. We'll just look at the pretty picture in the background while I run through our logistics operation that we undertake here. So in addition to the container business, we actually offer a full service. We can stuff and unstuff containers. So we're actually handling cargo. We have 3 large warehouses on site with 350,000 square foot of dry cargo capacity. In addition to this, we can also accommodate 30,000 metric tons of bulk cargo should the need arise. Supporting the warehouses, we have approximately 4,000 feet of rail track, and we also have truck loading and unloading docks to facilitate the movement of the cargoes in and out of the warehouses. Supplementing our prime moving fleet, we also have a large fleet of cargo handling equipment so that we're able to adapt to the different varieties of cargo that may be requested to move through our warehouse facilities. So as you can see, we're actually a multifaceted terminal. We're not traditionally just handling containers. And as part of this, we are required to, on a day-to-day basis, manage vast quantities of information and data that is coming to us. How we understand and interpret this data, it's one of the most important tools that we have available to us. It's really critical to help drive innovations in our business that can better service our customers, both externally and internally. Now, most people, when they think about innovation, they think about product, but innovation isn't just relevant to a product. It's also talking about changes that can improve on safety, internal processes, and the end goal is always to add efficiencies, providing added value to the services that are already on offer. During my time with RDP World and being involved in many implementations of software globally, one of the things that I've noticed often gets lost during the innovation process is the importance of understanding the end vision of what it is that you're actually trying to achieve and what you're doing and how it can actually better serve both your supplier and your end user, and also drive your productivity as a terminal operator. We find that using the agile model is very important in helping to eliminate this risk, constantly reviewing and adapting changes in our innovation strategies. Utilizing this information helps us really understand where there are opportunities for growth and how we work with our stakeholders to make these improvements that have tangible benefits for us and for them. Everything that we try to do is an end-to-end process, and we really pride ourselves on the collaboration with our partners and stakeholders to make sure that there is value in any changes that we're making. So RDP World came to St. John in 2017. One of the changes that happened was pretty immediately obvious. The skyline of St. John changed from red to blue when we positioned the 2 new post-Panamax cranes. This was to enable us to grow and handle larger ships in the future. And I'm sure those of you who've seen Matt Leach's presentation will have seen some of the exciting changes that are coming in the future with bigger cranes and ongoing terminal development to modernize and grow the business. Underlying this, one of the more less visible projects that was undertaken was the implementation of some very sophisticated software that we're using to manage and track the movements of the cargo and containers as they handle within our facility. It might surprise you that even though we're only 120,000 TEU terminal at the moment, this is the same software that's being used in T3 in Jebel Ali, which is a terminal that's capable of capacity of up to 4 million TEUs a year. The software, as Craig alluded to, it's wholly owned and developed by RDP World, and it's looked after by a team in Hong Kong, who I was fortunate enough to spend some time with. So as you can see, you know, in St. John, we've got 120,000, 200,000 TEU capacity. Dubai, 4 million. It's a very scalable and flexible product, which allows us to handle our data and also gives us the optionality to interface with other technologies that are available in the market. So it allows us the opportunity to include other developments to make us more efficient. Using the software has also enabled our internal analysis of our processes. It gives us the flexibility to make changes in order to streamline the data transfer and improve the communications that we have with our existing and new clients when we're delivering and receiving their containers and their cargo by truck or rail or any other means of transportation. Additionally, we took an approach to our warehousing operation. Previously, it was a very manual process. Cargo inventory was recorded by pen and paper. So we found that this was taking a lot of time, led to a lot of inaccuracies in the data. And we realized that the majority of the product that we're dealing with is barcoded. So we implemented a very quick and simple solution. We purchased some barcode scanners. We collaborated with a local vendor, and we were able to implement a barcode scanning process, which has actually helped us to reduce the time it takes to load and unload trucks and rail cars when they're delivering cargo to us. And it's also vastly reduced any errors in the inventory accuracy that we were reporting on. Additionally, we are also making sure that we are trying to stay current with electronic data interchange messages to help us to improve the timeliness and the accuracy of the information that is coming to us through sort of the file transfer protocol that's available. Something that's actually very important to remember is that innovation is a continual process. It never stops. You can implement a great idea, you can make operational efficiency changes, you can increase your productivity, but everything is evolving. You only have to look at your cell phone to realize how quickly things are changing and how often a new product is available. And to stay current and competitive, it's very important that as a terminal operator, we're looking outward as well as inward to see what is available to us to help us improve. I, for one, am delighted to be here at a time of very exciting change for St. John. We've got the modernization product. We recently have the addition of a second class 1 rail operator and a third liner customer who has just started up a weekly service servicing St. John. In order to stay current and to make sure that we are not, that's not what I want to say. In order to stay current and just to make sure that we are providing the best service possible, we've got a lot of initiatives that we're working on. And some of these that might be of interest to you are as follows. I spoke briefly earlier about the barcode implementation in the warehouse. We're actually working with the team in Hong Kong to build an integrated module that is going to link directly to the terminal operating side of the business. So we're going to have a module that's going to seamlessly transfer the cargo from the warehouse to the container. It's going to incorporate the efficiencies gained by the implementation of the barcode scanning, but it's also going to reduce the manual data manipulation that we currently have to go through. Additionally, we're going to be investing in Wi-Fi infrastructure throughout the terminal. This is going to enable us to provide real-time information on the movement of containers and cargo through the terminal. This is going to provide benefit to our customers as they're going to be more able to track their product as it's moving through St. John. We were recently made very aware of a gap in some of the information that we can publish to our customers. So one of the things that we're working very closely on right now is looking at implementing an external customer portal. Initially, the scope of this is going to be to allow a container track and trace. So if you've got a container number, you can put it into the portal and it will bring up information on the container status. So you'll know if it's customs released, if it's on rail, if it's on dock, still on the vessel. Later on, we're going to increase this scope potentially to open up booking requests, to enable the customer to change container information that's pertinent to them. So we're working closely with our customer base to determine what's required and how we're going to implement this to meet their needs. The electronic data interchange functionality is something that we are working also very hard on to make sure that we're utilizing all the different message types that are available to us. Right now, we're sending out information about container moves, vessel load, vessel discharge, gate in, gate out, on rail, off rail. There's a whole host of other information available through the file transfer protocol that right now we're not able to utilize, although the product has the functionality to do so. So part of the analysis that I'm working on is looking at the structure of these messages and working with the team so that they can understand which are the key segments of these messages and how we extract them from the body of information to capture what is useful to us in our business and to be able to share it to those who have an interest. We're also trying to make use and harness the power of existing tools. Office 365 is very powerful, and we're taking advantage of this to streamline our internal communications. We're looking at how we can use Power BI to integrate with our terminal operating system database and produce a dashboard that's going to show meaningful performance indicators that's going to enable us to make sound and rapid operational decisions and plan for the day's activities ahead. As part of the modernization program, we're also actively exploring opportunities to implement technologies such as OCR, optical character recognition, and we're going to look to utilize this to help validate key information and flag up potential discrepancies so that we can promptly handle any such discrepancies and make sure that the transition of the container or cargo is as seamless as possible to the customer. So for a small terminal, it sounds like we've got quite a lot going on, but really we're not working on this alone. RDP World is a global company. We also have support and project groups with our local community and port users, and we are leveraging our relationships with the development team of Zodiac in Hong Kong, plus reaching out to our counterparts on the West Coast in Vancouver, Prince Rupert, Fraser Surrey, Nanaimo, who are able to help provide us with some of the expertise and experience needed to make sure that the ideas that we're having and the innovations that we're making are adding value to our business. As a company, we are very committed to innovation, not just locally, but globally. We even have an in-house platform for all employees to share ideas and suggestions, and those that have value are picked up at the highest level, and the company will invest time, money, and expertise to see them come through to fruition. Once implemented in one terminal, these can then be adopted and integrated to other terminals who have the same requirement to do so. So innovation can range from something really simple, like taking a repurposed reach stacker tire, binding it together with some friends and making a replacement for a jersey block, or it can be very complex. For those of you who haven't heard about Box Bay, go to YouTube, have a look for it. It's a groundbreaking container stacking concept that is really going to change the way that container terminals operate in the future. It's currently just finishing its proof of concept trials, and it's very exciting. So just to close up, I want to say that we are taking great pride in our collaborative efforts with our partners to ensure that any opportunities for improvements are aligned with their key business objectives and any future business requirements that they may have, some of which are here with me today, Craig from Port St. John and Mark from Transport Canada. So on that note, thank you for listening to me. And I would like to pass you back to Craig, our wonderful moderator, who is going to field some of your questions. And I'm hoping they're mostly going to be aimed at Mark and not me.
Well, thank you so much, Alex and Mark previously. I think that those presentations give a lot of value to all the stakeholders on the call, knowing what proactive measures the Government of Canada is working on in such a different way than we're used to at the Innovation Center. And it's just phenomenal, Mark, that you're working on this and are such a collaborative partner for two of the ports here on the East Coast. And Alex, thank you for giving the overview about DP World's role in St. John and how much we've grown together since 2017. So I've got time for a couple of quick questions, and I will direct the first one at Mark, Alex, so you can relax for a moment. Mark, maybe explain a little bit the difference between customizing solutions with startups versus kind of large scale off-the-shelf designs in terms of driving innovation.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that's a real value of working with startups, it's a risk, but it's a value, is that they're often sort of figuring it out as well, especially if it's their first deployment or second deployment. They might not know their way around an issue. So that requires a little bit more time on your part if you're the one purchasing the service or supporting it. However, you know for sure that they're also putting in a lot more time too, because it's their time to shine. So they will put in a lot more effort into things like customization in terms of understanding user needs and in terms of learning the ropes. And because they're also new at it, they won't take for granted that it must be done one way or another. So it's a bit of a trade-off. You get more openness, you get more commitment to customization, but also you yourself as the purchaser, as the champion, as the sponsor, you have to put more time and effort into it. Personally, I don't mind that. I think it's a real trade-off, but there's certainly value to it. You compare that to a larger procurement where there's more precedence. It's been done before. It's a bit more turnkey. You as the purchaser can be a bit more hands-off. There's certainly a value to that as well. It depends a lot on the project really and the level of commitment. But full disclosure, I mean, almost all the work I do these days is with startups, so I do have a bias there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. The next question, maybe Alex can touch on it first, and we can go over to Mark. You really hit on a theme that I'm fascinated about, and it's about balancing kind of the day-to-day operations and what we do to keep a terminal or a port authority going with new innovative projects that we know are going to transform our organizations going forward. Maybe describe a little bit about what that balance has looked like for you in your career.
Late nights, coffee, a modicum of alcohol. No, seriously, I think when you're working on any idea or project, one of the key things that you have to do first of all is you have to get the right team in place. You have to understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and you make sure that you are trying to solve an actual problem. Sometimes I see people trying to change something because they feel something needs to change, but there actually isn't anything wrong with the existing process. And this is where you end up wasting time, losing focus, and exhausting people because the commitment and the engagement on the project isn't there. So it's really critical, first of all, to basically make sure that there's a buy-in for the idea and that there really is a genuine value to what it is that you're trying to do. Just because you have money to buy fancy equipment, do you need to? What happens if you don't make the change? So you've got to look at both sides of the fence. And one of the things that is really key in DP World is talking about the culture. People are so scared of change. So we're trying to lead a culture whereby change doesn't have to be frightening. It should be exciting. And you need to be part of it. And by being inclusive and collaborative and discussing the ideas and actually really understanding the root of the problem that you want to change, that's when you're more likely to succeed, because people see the benefit and they can directly transfer that to how it's going to affect their day-to-day role at work, or how it's going to provide a positive improvement on their business if they're a customer. Yeah. So for me, that's one of the critical things. It's getting the right idea and making sure that you have the engagement and the level of excitement to carry it through to fruition.
Yeah. Well said, Mark. We've got a couple seconds left. Did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to riff off of that. So, I totally agree with both of those statements. I think that one of the things about finding sort of that key alliance of partners who is willing to venture out a little bit is wonderful because it compounds. They really sort of feed off of one another when you're working with an innovative environment, and so establishing those partners and making sure to reach out to them is worth its weight in gold. The other thing I'd offer is that whenever we are working on a project, we tend to try and put two definitions of what we're addressing. We put up a problem statement. Here's the problem we're seeking to solve, and here's the prospective solution. And whenever we sort of feel that one of those projects might be drifting, might need a bit of realignment, we always go back to those two statements. And often when there's an issue, it's because we're trying to solve the problem and we've forgotten what the solution is, or trying to arrive at the solution and we've forgotten sort of what the problem is.
Yeah.
So I just advise that, yeah, that's a good way to sort of continuously ground any project and have a commitment to innovation. Is just sort of always remind yourself of that and always think about,
Yeah.
what does my stakeholders, what do my key users, what do they want from this, and what am I going to tell them I've made?
Yeah. No, extremely well said. Mark, Alex, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much. Your energy, passion, enthusiasm, you're both key players in the future growth of our port. And I want to thank you both for participating in this panel. And thank you to the audience for the questions. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Wow, what an interesting discussion led by Craig Estabrooks of Port St. John about how data and innovation are changing the face of our port. And thank you to Mark Robbins from Innovation Center at Transport Canada and Alex Kehoe of RDP World for joining in on that discussion. Up next, we have a break until 1 o'clock Atlantic Daylight Time, at which time we'll resume with a panel led by Andrew Dixon about cruise and post-pandemic times. And immediately after that, we'll discuss port in the community. We hope you'll join us again at 1 o'clock Atlantic Time. Thank you.